Tracking Omicron in Ohio, what the state is asking you to do if you test positive for COVID-19. Plus, lawmakers debate if the COVID-19 vaccine should be mandated. We ask U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown to weigh in. The city of Columbus decides to seal criminal records. Hear why this could give 1 in 3 adults a chance at a better life. Thank you for joining us for Face the State. I'm Karina Nova in for Tracy Townsend. This week, the U.S. entered a new chapter of the COVID-19 pandemic with the discovery of the Omicron variant in California. Dr. Bruce Vanderhoff with the Ohio Department of Health says right now Delta is the dominant variant in Ohio, and more testing needs to be done to track Omicron if and when it'll get here. He called on Ohioans who test positive to take an additional PCR test so they can look for the variant and learn about it.
If and when it arrives in Ohio, rest assured, we'll be looking for it. So we don't know yet if Omicron will be more contagious, cause more severe or less severe illness, or be more deadly. But let's remember that there were other variants of concern, ones like Beta and Mu, which spread rapidly in other parts of the world, but actually never took hold here. Now with Omicron, as in the past with new variants, it is time that will tell the story, and we will be watching very closely. Importantly, at this time, we have no indication that our vaccines will fail to provide substantial protection against even Omicron. Especially, we're reassured that our vaccines do appear to protect against severe disease.
Governor Mike DeWine is also keeping a close watch on the Omicron variant's progress. DeWine says the systems in place here in Ohio, including monitoring and vaccination efforts, are working. DeWine acknowledged that he is concerned with a rise in one specific category.
What I worry about is the hospitalizations going up across the state. They have continued to go up for the last few weeks. They are at a much higher level than they were just 2 weeks ago. So yes, I'm very concerned about that. Yesterday we had one of the 8 regions of the state, really was overloaded. And so the hospitals and our office had to take action to make sure that patients were being taken care of. So, the system is working, but, it's something that is very concerning. We have looked at this from the county point of view and compared counties where the vaccination rate is high versus counties where the vaccination rate is low. And it's pretty much what we would have expected. In the counties where the vaccination rate is low, we're just seeing a lot more people die. And that's just, every one of these deaths was probably preventable. And that's what just kind of breaks your heart. And as Fran and I travel around the state, we see people and we talk to people, and no matter where we go, people are telling us about somebody that they know, who is now in the hospital or somebody who has died. And again, it's just what breaks your heart is that these deaths are preventable at this point. We have the vaccine. The vaccine is how we keep people out of the hospital.
The debate over mandating the COVID-19 vaccine took center stage at the State House this week. House Bill 218, which passed the House a few weeks ago, had its first hearing in a Senate committee. The bill would prohibit Ohio employers and schools from mandating vaccines not fully approved by the federal government. A sponsor of the bill, Representative Al Catrona, said passing this bill will strengthen the workforce.
Simply put, this piece of legislation is a bill to address the crisis that our country is facing, and specifically here in the state of Ohio. That crisis is the workforce. We're struggling. We're seeing shortages all across. I can tell you right now, every legislator across the board always says they're going to bring back jobs to their district, right? Well, by golly, we must be one of the best you ever seen, best in the world, right? Because back home on 224, when I drive down there, every single business has got a help wanted sign. It's not because we brought new jobs back. It's those same old jobs not being filled with workers. That's a problem. We're seeing this in the healthcare industry, nursing homes. They're struggling to find the people to properly be able to take care and keep that good standard of care that's occurring in the hospitals as well. And so by putting any type of restriction on there is going to hurt our workforce.
The Ohio Chamber of Commerce does not agree with the bill's sponsor. President and CEO Steve Stiver said employers have a legal obligation to provide a safe workplace, and House Bill 218 limits their option to ensure the safety and well-being of employees and customers. And U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown says vaccines are the only way to get us through this pandemic.
But we can't get the economy moving until almost everybody get vaccinated. You're not doing it just for your own health. You're doing it for the health of people around you. I talk to hospital people all the time that say that 95% of their patients that are in the hospital with COVID are unvaccinated. And that costs taxpayers at least $25,000 or $30,000 a year for every sick person. It means others can't get in a hospital. I've talked to hospitals in Columbus and all over that they're having trouble taking care of other sick people because so many are unvaccinated in the hospital. And so you're not just doing this for yourself, getting vaccinated. You're doing it for your country, your community, your fellow men and women.
But a Delaware City Council member spoke at the Senate hearing, pleading with the committee to pass the ban.
Be on the right side of history and the same side as states and governors who have courageously defended their citizens. Or acquiesce to a federal government gone rogue because you didn't want to tell a business what to do, while being perfectly comfortable with a man in Washington doing so. Please amend this bill to prevent vaccination mandates from being issued anywhere, by anyone, anytime.
Ohio is one of 3 states that stopped President Biden's vaccination mandate for federal contractors from taking effect. This week, a federal judge ruled in favor of the states of Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. The lawsuit claimed the requirement is unlawful and unconstitutional. It would have taken effect January 4th. The judge said this is not about the vaccine's effectiveness. It is about the power the president has. An appeal is likely. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost had this to say about the ruling, quote, "This is not about vaccines, it's about the mandate." The judge's opinion clearly states that, and it has been our position all along, that the president cannot impose those mandates on the people. Ohio Senator Rob Portman is urging local and national governments to fight against what he calls epidemic within the pandemic.
We should be a better partner. We've got to all work together to find constructive solutions to the addiction epidemic and ensure more Americans don't suffer in silence.
During his speech on the Senate floor, he called for a crackdown on drug dealers and fentanyl. The senator is also pushing to improve assistance for those struggling with addiction. He's calling for it to be put into the same drug category as heroin and LSD. 1 in 3 adults in the U.S. has a criminal record, which can make it difficult to find a job, housing, or federal student loans. To help those formerly incarcerated become employed, a new program has launched in Columbus to allow people who have served their time to have their criminal records sealed from public view. 10 TV's Kevin Landers explains how it works.
Romero Hairston makes a living stocking produce behind a glass freezer inside the Linden Fresh Market. 12 years ago, he was spending most of his days behind bars.
I did 12 years in prison for aggravated robbery, home invasion.
Hairston is an example of what can happen when an employer takes a chance on a person with a criminal past.
I never had a job before I went to prison. I went to prison when I was 21. I got out when I was 33.
We asked him how many jobs he applied for before he landed this one.
Probably about 25, 30, man. Like, it's ridiculous, man.
Hairston was hired despite his record. Starting December 1st, Columbus announced it will also help people with criminal records get their records sealed from public view. Councilmember Rob Dorans pushed the idea.
How can someone with a criminal conviction rebuild their life if their record disqualifies them from nearly 25% of jobs within their community.
Right where this juts out will be the counter.
Community Development for All People is building this Southside Cafe that will open next year.
We are planning on roasting our own coffee.
Its mission is to hire people with a criminal past.
The record will not be a disqualifier. It's basically, are you willing to work? Are you willing to do what's required for the job and treat your fellow workers and the community with dignity and respect like you would expect to be treated?
Getting someone's criminal record sealed from public view is not as simple as walking into the courthouse and requesting it. First, a judge must decide if you qualify, and that means looking at someone's criminal record, not just from Ohio.
If applying to seal a misdemeanor, a person will have to wait a year after it's been discharged, same for 4th or 5th degree felonies. If applying to seal a record with a 3rd degree felony, a person will have to wait 3 years after it's been discharged. Crimes of violence or sex offenses don't qualify to be sealed. While Hairston wouldn't qualify, he has a message for employers who don't want to take a chance on someone he used to be.
We're some of the hardest workers out here. Some of the hardest workers out here. Like, just give people a chance.
Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
If you know someone who has a record and is looking for work, we have more resources on our website at 10tv.com. 2 Ohio Democrats are pushing to create the Foster Youth Bill of Rights. The sponsors of the bill say it would give at least 15,000 children in the state's custody more knowledge about their options and give them more of a voice in their care. Right now, more than 3,000 foster children in Ohio are waiting to be adopted. The director of Buckeye Ranch, Amy NIMS, says the pandemic has caused less flexibility to allow more children in need into homes. She's now more than ever says they are hoping to find homes for these children in time for the holidays.
But when you get that look from a child that says, wow, I think you really unconditionally accept me or love me, I don't know that there really is a better feeling in the world.
Still to come, an update on a 10 Investigates report about a man accused of running an illegal funeral home. What changes lawmakers are trying to do to regulate the funeral industry more here in Ohio. A bill that was discussed in the state Senate this week would revise the law regarding funerals and funeral services. 10 TV highlighted the importance of laws surrounding funeral homes with a story 10 Investigates broke about a man with local ties accused of running an illegal funeral home here in Columbus. This man, Shante Hardin, was indicted by a Lucas County grand jury on 37 charges ranging from abuse of a corpse to representing as a funeral director while unlicensed. At least a dozen complaints filed against him since 2016 with Ohio Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors. And one complaint says a body was so decomposed the skin was slipping off and mothballs were used to help eliminate the odor of death. Another complaint says a worker at a cemetery in Akron got sick after Hardin showed up in an old rusty van with a body for burial that had a pronounced smell of decomposition. This is a tangled web, and those involved say answers are somewhere between deceit and greed. 10 TV anchor Andrew Kinsey explains.
The funeral industries work very hard to try to accommodate families, grieving families of deceased.
Death is a natural part of life, but it's also a business. Marvin Johnson owns Johnson Mortuary Transport. He says in the past, he's dealt with Shante Hardin.
He introduced himself to me as being a funeral director and an embalmer who owned 2 funeral homes, one in Akron and another one in Warren.
Hardin has never been licensed as a funeral director in Ohio, nor as an embalmer. Johnson thinks Hardin's business practices sometimes skirted Ohio law.
What he would do was allow the funeral home to do a licensed funeral home to do the embalming, and then he would come in from that part and ask for a transfer of the deceased to his care.
In a week's time, back in 2017, a civil lawsuit shows that exact thing happened several times here at Dill Whitaker Funeral Services in Columbus, which raised a red flag. Eventually, the owner accused Hardin of costing him time and money.
He's gotten away with it for so long. I just think Shante began to think he was invincible.
Marlon Gary owns Marlon Gary Funeral Homes. He's known Shantae since he was a teen. While he's worked in several funeral homes, Gary says Harton lacks the professional training to care for the dead.
There was one instance where he picked up a deceased from our funeral home. He picked him up in a minivan. He did not have a gurney, so he transported the human remains from my gurney into the back of his van with a coffee table turned upside down, the 4 legs sticking up, in order to support the body from moving around in the back of his van.
Despite knowing his past and a lack of a state license, Gary says his hands have been tied when dealing with Harton.
In Ohio, you can't hold a body, what we say, for ransom. If a family wants to move a body, they have every right to do so.
State investigators say Harton told families he was associated with a licensed funeral director with the Islamic Church, now living in Maryland. The doctor told investigators he knows Harton, but never agreed to allow him to use his name and license number at free will.
Who knows who's embalming for him? Maybe that's something that will come out in this investigation.
According to family interviews with state investigators, on several occasions, Harton would transfer bodies here to Donovan Funeral Home near Akron. It's the same business fined in the past for associating with Shantae Harton. After several unreturned calls to the owner, we showed up to get answers.
This is Andrew Kinsey with WBNS.
Yeah, he's not in. I can have him give you a call.
Yes, can I leave my number?
Sure can.
The owner never called back. Some families we spoke with say they can't put their dealings with Harton behind them because they have questions about cremated remains they received and death certificates still missing.
How does another human being look at themselves and says that that's okay? It just boggles my mind.
As former mayor of Toledo, where Harton once did business, State Representative Paula Hicks Hudson is familiar with his name. She's outraged by Harton's ability to build a business enterprise using what she says are loopholes in the state law.
It makes no sense that families who are grieving, hurting, will be taken advantage of in such a way.
Hicks Hudson is now pushing for legislation to ensure there are stronger requirements and oversight for those dealing with the dead and harsher legal action for those caught operating without a license.
We've got it drafted. Now we just got to get it to the other, like to the funeral board and some other places for them to look at it and to give me their opinions as to whether or not this is going to address that particular issue.
And that was Andrew Kinsey reporting. Hicks Hudson is not the only lawmaker looking to address gray areas in the state law when it comes to funeral-related practices. A comprehensive bill already in the Senate is getting favorable action and support from the state board. Right now, Harton is out on bond on house arrest. He's been ordered to not accept money from families or engaged in funeral-related activities, which includes transporting bodies. His attorney says Harton helped people through a difficult and expensive process within the boundaries of the law. They are currently preparing for his trial, which is set to begin February 7th. Up next in this morning's Note of Promise, some words of encouragement for the men and women working the front lines in Ohio's hospitals. In Columbus this week, there was a ceremony cementing the legacy of a long-tenured public servant. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine was on hand as the State Department of Transportation named its central office the Jerry Wray Building. Wray was the agency's only two-time director, serving a total of 16 years for two governors, George Voinovich and John Kasich.
Kind of overwhelmed. I didn't know what we were going to do, but this is beyond anything I expected. And Governor and Jack, thank you so much for your comments. This is incredible. I am completely humbled and honored.
Wray began his career in ODOT'S engineering and training program back in 1969. In this morning's Note of Promise, a tribute to the hardworking men and women in the healthcare industry. And we don't need to tell you how much stress the pandemic has put on those who work in Ohio's hospitals. This week, Face the State anchor Tracy Townsend emceed an event to honor the hospital heroes. The ceremony was called Healing Ohio Together. Here's what the governor had to say at that event.
Hello, I'm Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. It's my pleasure to be able to participate in this event today. Thank you all for your selfless work throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. From clinicians to support staff, you've endured a once-in-a-lifetime health crisis and answered the call when Ohioans needed you. Thank you so very much. Ohio is renowned for our world-class medical institutions. Today, I want to recognize 3 leaders who committed themselves early on to getting Ohioans through this. Dr. Richard Lofgren from UC Health, Dr. Andy Thomas from the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, and Dr. Robert Wiley from the Cleveland Clinic answered the call, joined together with us to develop a statewide healthcare infrastructure network. In fact, literally, we've had hundreds of early morning calls, spontaneous, unscheduled calls throughout the pandemic. It's been a real pleasure to work with them. And I've gotten to see what amazing pros they are. This unprecedented partnership ensures that providers across the state have the supplies and resources they need while ensuring patients are at the appropriate place to receive the best care. This extraordinary partnership brings the state's health systems together to serve Ohioans as a team.
And we leave you this morning with a couple of stories that'll get you in the holiday mood. A local choir performed at the State House this week to get everyone ready for the annual lighting of the State House Christmas tree. Then Santa and Mrs. Claus made a guest appearance to take pictures with the kids. And Governor DeWine joined Shabbat rabbis from all over the state for the 5th night of Hanukkah menorah lighting ceremony. DeWine used the event to urge college and university presidents to ensure that Jewish students feel safe on campus and to denounce hate. Well, thank you all for being here with us today. And remember, if it affects you, your family, and Ohio, we're here to make sure those accountable face the state.